Good morning, everybody. Welcome, croeso, to this second in the series of our 10 webinar sessions highlighting the asks from the Barod Manifesto. So you're very welcome and to this next hour, which I hopefully will inform you about how we can work with family and concerned others effectively to support them. So just before we start, I just wanted to give you a brief explanation about our manifesto. So we developed our manifesto, which we consider is a blueprint for a more equal and prosperous Wales for people who use substances. Because we believe that we need to be brave, bold, in driving innovation and policy and practice to help reduce harm and save lives. And we do this with people who use substances. We need to step up to the challenge we face, and we owe that to the many individuals, families and communities in Wales that are impacted by substance use. So you can download our manifesto from our website, and then we've got also policy papers both in Welsh and English, and it gives you a really in-depth overview of each topic. So today we're looking at family and concerned other services. So when 1 in 3 people across the UK have been negatively affected by somebody else's substance use, and around 50% of children in care are there as a consequence of parental substance use, we need to take this seriously. Helping concerned others cope with effective support improves their own health and well-being and enables them to support their loved ones. We believe that we can and must do better in Wales. However, we do believe that there's some great work happening here in South Wales, and we're going to hear about that in today's session. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speakers. So may I welcome Jolie Rose and Mike Blanche, who are from Gwent Drug and Alcohol Family Service, and I know they'll be able to give us a really good understanding of the amazing work that they do over in Gwent. So without further ado, I think it's Mike who's going to be speaking. So Mike, over to you.
Thank you very much. So hi, my name is Mike Blanche and I work as a family support worker with GDAFS. I've been working with supporting concerned others since 1998, when my own family was affected by substance misuse issues. At that time, we discovered that my son was using heroin. And as you can imagine, we as a family were devastated. We knew nothing about drug use, so we did not know how to deal with the situation at all. And at that time, there was no family support available. So the extended family wasn't receiving the support. And they're the ones who often found themselves affected with the stigma involved. And often find themselves trying to control a very often volatile situation. Because of my own personal experiences, I feel it's imperative that support for concerned others is recognised as important as support for the actual substance user themselves. The effects of drug and alcohol issues affects the whole family unit. Today, GDAFS is a Gwent-wide service providing support for concerned others who are affected by someone else's drug and alcohol use. So, 1998, 4 families were brought together by a nurse from the then North Gwent Drug Service, and they formed a small self-help group in Vale. So, following on from this, I was invited to provide a listening ear and limited support to other parents. It's important for someone who goes through this trauma to know that they are not alone and they're able to talk about their concerns. With the initial success of these meetings, it was felt that there was a proven need for a more formal approach to providing support for families, and I managed to access a small lottery grant and GDAFS was born. So in 1998, brought the birth of a recognised concerned other service called GDAFS, and that was Drug and Alcohol Family Support. And this was managed at the time by Vale, and we worked in donated rooms out of a blind hospital with a couple of part-time volunteers and a coordinator. in 2000, we had a great deal of press interest, and the local newspapers started covering us and reporting us on what's going on with the service. So this highlighted the service as it was, but also highlighted the need for further training for the DAFS staff to train as counsellors. So 2015 brought about a new integrated drug, alcohol and family intervention service. Concerned Other Support then became known as GDAFS, Family Support. And this provided support for concerned others. But at this time, this was an adult 18 plus service only. Then in 2022, adult family support was integrated with the young person's family service. This formed a standalone concerned other service covering the whole of Gwent. And this was working alongside Engage within the Barod. And in 2024, Concerned Other Support in Gwent actually celebrated its silver anniversary. Big milestone for us, as I didn't think we would get anywhere near that at the time. It's also important to recognise the effects that substance use has on young siblings. And having specialised workers to work with these young people provides them with an outlet to express their own thoughts and their feelings. They need to be heard. They need to know that there's somebody out there that they can relate to and talk to. So GDAFS has three basic strands to the service. So under 18s, concerned others, under over 18s, concerned others, and parent carers of under 18s. So support for under 18s, so this is a bespoke and flexible service tailored to their needs, and it looks at safety planning. Young people can see a worker in a venue that's appropriate for them, including in their own schools, somewhere that's comfortable for them to speak and easily accessible. Over 18 support, this allows the client to learn new skills when supporting a family member, such as a sibling, spouse, parent. And these include coping mechanisms and looks at harm reduction. And with parent and carer support, provide support for the parent and carers whose children are using substances, encouraging their loved one into support, using various tools such as self-care, self-rewards. And to me, having been there myself, got the t-shirt, this is a priority, as you cannot support someone if you do not look after yourself. So we often look at the oxygen mask rule. Who do you put that on first? So we also look at things like harm reduction, awareness, positive communication skills, healthy boundaries, and also enabling behaviours. So we provide the support using one-to-one sessions, things like mediation, wellbeing activities, and group meetings. So one-to-one sessions can be in person at a venue that suits the client, including home visits or online, if that's easier for them, or if they've got mobility issues. It's important that the client feels safe in a confidential, non-judgmental environment, and above all, heard. Because very often they feel they are not heard, they feel they're very much alone. First one is PUP, Parents Under Pressure. So a number of our staff are trained and accredited with PUP. So this is a whole family approach which focuses on three main points. So parental emotional regulation, nurturance, and view of self as a parent. This has been piloted and funded by the Welsh Assembly and accredited by the Griffith University in Australia. So the two main approaches used in one-to-one work are PACT and CRAFT. These are CBT skills-based models designed to influence positive change in a loved one's behaviour, but also maintaining the client's own emotional and physical well-being. The original DAFS service played a key role in developing the PAC programme alongside Phil Harris and was part of the pilot scheme in Gwent. So GDAFS has developed separate workbooks for adults and young people. So various worksheets include well-being, self-care, safety for over 18s and under 18s. These workbooks are used during one-to-one sessions, and when completed, they're the priority of the concerned other. It's something for them to be able to look back on themselves, because sometimes things can get a little bit difficult, and it's just a reminder of the things that they've covered and the progress that they've made. So development of a teenager's toolkit is also it's underway and it's almost completed. So other interventions include mediation. So accredited workers deliver mediation between concerned other and the loved one. So focusing on supporting the loved one into or when in treatment, setting realistic, achievable boundaries, and being able to improve positive communication between hopefully the whole family. So it's enabling people to move on, get the support they need, and hopefully come out the other side. So these sessions are linked in with work provided with other parts of the service and also other outside services. So wellbeing and activity worker. This dedicated worker, it facilitates the concerned other to promote and improve their own well-being through a range of activities. For example, walking, swimming, going to the gym, arts and craft, and community engagement. So groups, and this is my particular favourite because this is what I do. So we work with Spark Recovery Family and Friends. So it's an internationally recognised approach, and it allows those attending to share experiences with others in a similar situation through mutual peer support. The groups are facilitated and they use 14 topics to enable those who attend to learn new skills, and this enables them to manage their everyday well-being, learn coping strategies that will help them to support a loved one and to get themselves support and while being able to support their own lives. The group has both staff members and trained volunteers, and these very often, I myself, and I know my volunteer Brian at the moment, they've got a t-shirt themselves, they've been through it, they've got lived experience. At the moment, there's currently 2 face-to-face meetings and an online evening meeting, and this allows people to work through people who work access to this support, because very often people can't attend during the daytime, so they need an access to support in the evening. The aim is for every borough in Gwent to have one of these meetings. Many people attending these groups are looking for ways of stopping their loved one using, but they soon realise they can't control that, and that these groups are there for themselves and that they can possibly influence change. So during these groups, it's a very sociable group, but it's slightly structured. So we get together, we have a cup of tea, coffee, cake and biscuits, then we have a check-in. So we check in with everybody who attends, where they are at that moment, if they're going through any problems they need to discuss. And we discuss them. And they get our mutual support from other people. When that's done, we look at one of the topics on the flip chart. So we spend a little bit of time there, and it's all about skill learning different things. So again, looking at what's happening for them, what's happening for their loved ones, how they deal with it. So positive communication, everything like that. So the topics that we cover there include self-care, self-rewards, healthy boundaries, positive communications, and these are just a few among others. There's 14 topics, but numerous things come up in these meetings, and it's always open for discussion. One-off sessions of naloxone and benzo training have been well attended by the groups as well. So there's that educational side to it as well. So they know what's happening. They know up-to-date information. We're also introducing well-being activity sessions. So group Cynefin, this is our young persons group. And this was named by the young people themselves, meaning a sense of belonging. This group provides peer support and a range of well-being activities. These sessions, they're well attended, and it's really, really interesting how much they really get from these sessions themselves. It brings them out of their shells. Next slide, please. So we received so much positive feedback from the groups. Here are the few of them. To be honest, I'm a bit shy to read them out, so I'm going to leave you a couple of, just a minute, just so you can have a little read yourself. Please change over the slide when ready. Concerned other support is really grown over the years, from a time when support for families and concerned others was non-existent. So looking back over the last 27 years since I've been involved, I never envisaged how it had evolved and grown, and the number of families who have benefited from it. From 4 families at the beginning of the journey to a service where, at present, we have 118 concerned others across Gwent accessing this service now. And this has an age range of 8 to 74 years. If you'd like further information regarding the service, you can access our website. I hope you do. And if anybody want to contact, please contact, and we'll give you as much information as we can. So thank you for listening. And remember, you're not alone.
Oh, Mike, thank you so much for that. That was, well, it's sort of quite emotional, really, because I started my journey of work in 1999 in Gwent as part of the service there. And, you know, and I remember GDAFS, and I remember thinking how amazing. And I think I met you at the time. And to look at, you know, that journey was in Vale, you know, I just was like, I was having loads of memories coming back then. And also it just reflecting on that, there's a sort of like the sophistication of the different things that we can do now, you know, the learning that we've had over all those years, and how we can reach sort of all age ranges and help people understand what they're going through and help people to support their loved ones. You know, it's a credit to you, it's a credit to all the team, and it's a credit to sort of understanding that was needed there. And so thank you very much. And that final thought that you're not alone, that is something that we need to, that mantra is really important. And that feedback was outstanding, Mike. Thank you so much. We will have an opportunity for questions to Mike after I introduce our next speakers now. So we go from Gwent, we go to the mean streets of Cardiff and the Vale of Glamorgan, to CAVDAS and their Family and Concerned Other Service. And I'd like to introduce you to Andrew McCutchion, Kate Doyle and Anna Lewis. I'm not sure how you're going to do it, but I'm sure you'll have a system in place. And so off you go.
Thank you ever so much. And thanks ever so much for having us today to join this webinar. I think it's really important. It's really exciting for us. So we're going to talk a little bit about a specific project that we do in CAVDAS. So I just wanted to go sort of almost right back to the beginning. CAVDAS was a service that went live in August of 2022. And it was at that point, I think 9 services kind of coming together. It became an integrated service across Cardiff and the Vale. I joined in October 2022, and I think my first few weeks I realized that I had walked into rooms of people who kind of almost looked a little bit traumatized, bless them, from this 2P process. And at that point it was still very, very much in those early forming days. I came over to be the team leader for the children and young person service. A couple of my earliest memories are kind of walking into the room and seeing just people sat at desks and trying to get a feel of like, okay, so where do you work? And there was lots of like, well, I think I'm a young person's worker. I think I'm a family worker. At that point, there was one family worker who was very much sat in with the adult service and didn't really have a structure, I guess, or a team. But that actually at that point wasn't really my bag. So I kind of like left that to the adult services, came over to children and young persons, and met this lady, Kate Doyle, who I remember one day saying, why can't we work with young people who are affected by substances? And I'm like, well, can't we? They do it in Gwent. I know, because I've just come from that service. So we kind of did the age old, let's just do it and beg forgiveness rather than seek permission. And I think that that's really where it kind of all started. Very much aware that I came over standing on the shoulders of giants like Mike, like Lisa, Hayley, Kath, who had set up these amazing services. And I was just like, let's just do it. So from that, and I'm not going to speak for Kate, she's going to talk, with the support of our managers, of our commissioners, we sort of kind of fell into this family and concerned other team, which has gone from having one person in adult services and Kate and I kind of doing it underhanded to Kate being the team leader. We're growing as a team. We offer exactly the same support as GDAFS. Like I said, we came over with that standing on the shoulders of giants mantra that we don't need to go through what we offer, because Mike's really elegantly just explained what they do in GDAFS, and we do very similar in CAVDAS. So for this webinar, we wanted to talk a little bit about a project that we've set up, a storytelling project. Kate's going to fill you in, and then Andrew's going to finish with, I guess, our kind of little manifesto. So, yeah, so I hope you enjoy. So I'll leave you to Kate.
Hello. So I was invited by Healthy Schools, who I've always had a great relationship with through my education and prevention work with children and young people. I was invited to a storytelling webinar where they were launching a book called Twinkle Twinkle Arti. I was just inspired by the story. There's no mention of drugs or alcohol in this book. There's just a character that causes mayhem in the little star's life, and it looks at how it impacts their big star and who they can turn to, who can be their safe person. And we were already looking at commissioning our own storybook at the time, which was going to be hugely expensive, which, as we know, is not always an option in these services. So I got in touch with Dr. Cassie, who had developed this book, and just said, is there any chance I can buy a copy? And she said, no, you can have the book. Please have the resources. And then we discussed it further and talked about getting it translated into Welsh, which we've done. So we launched that just recently, and Andrew, one of our other CYP workers, has recently been into their first primary school and read the story to years 2 and 3. Yeah. And they were so responsive to it. They absolutely loved it. And there were questions around the characters afterwards to see if they can relate. And they all did. They all understood how Arti, the little star, must have felt. Some of the adjectives they used were like scared and nervous and worried and relieved, and really big words for such little people. And we followed on from that storybook. Andrew's recently gone back into the same group about a month later to help them create their own version of the character that causes the mischief. So the character is called a Yozzle, and he whizzes around and causes dust and causes his big star to be grumpy, and he can't get rid of this Yozzle. And they all drew their own characters on this really long stream of paper. So it's been a really, really exciting project to see. And hopefully we've already got lots of bookings for September. So it'll be interesting to see how slightly older children maybe recognise themselves or somebody they know within that story.
So other things that we've been doing, I want to give a big shout out to our digital lead, Emily. She is putting together some social media messages. So I won't read them. You can please give us a follow. We're on Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok. I think Blue Sky. So we just wanted to do a bit of a campaign around FCO support. This is for us to try and reach people that actually probably wouldn't come into services. it's quite a new thing in Cardiff in the Vale, so I think we're just in that sort of still in that development phase. So social media is a great platform for us to try and engage with people and let us know that we're here for them. Like Mike said previously, to let people know they're not alone. We know that for every person that uses a substance, there's probably at least 3, maybe more people affected by that.
So we decided it was really important for people who are accessing our services as a concerned other to have something substantial that they can take away and refer back to, something that's not just a leaflet. So we were very lucky, and we had external comms consultants work with us on this family concerned other guide, which is A4. It's really good quality. It's got lots and lots of, like Mike said, lots of tips and tricks about taking care of yourself, about what you can change and what you can control. And it's just really nice for the people who access our service to be able to walk away with something to say that you are important. You're not just an add-on to your loved one who's accessed service or not accessed service yet. Because we don't necessarily only want to look at our family members as sort of capital to get their loved one into recovery, but actually that they deserve that support whether or not that happens. So our guide is really lovely. It's about young people, it's about family members, it's about taking care of yourself, it's about all of those things that can be really important, especially in those early days when somebody can be terrified and really not know what coming to work with a family support worker might look like. Entering drug service as someone who's never used substances can be really scary. So this kind of breaks down what that's like. And like Mike said, they don't have to come into our buildings, we can go to them. And so our lovely guide kind of explains that.
Thank you. Okay, so we just wanted to give a little bit of an overview of an amazing conference that we held earlier this year, a couple of weeks ago, actually. So like Kate said, the developers of the book Arti were absolutely amazing with us. They never wanted anything from us. They just were basically, you can have it translated. They even took it and illustrated it for us to go along with the Welsh translation. So we used the Family Concern Other conference to launch this book. I'll just give you a little bit of the overview of the day. We did it alongside GDAFS, so it was really great to see the two services come together, and it just felt like there was such a lot of power in that room, like-minded people, where this was suddenly a service for family members and it wasn't an add-on to adult services as it has been. So there's a little image of Twinkle Twinkle Arti. We've got a little video coming up that Emily kindly put together for us around the conference and around the day, and then Andrew's going to finish with his section. So this lady was Josie. She was amazing. She did the illustration for us. She was the one that illustrated the book originally. Like I said, I can't speak more highly of everyone involved with it. They were just so kind and so accommodating to us,
and just so excited themselves to have it translated into another language, and just used and utilized. It had been developed alongside children who had been impacted by substance use and children who hadn't, and some children recognized that the YOSL might be mental health or a physical condition as well as drugs and alcohol.
So some of our guest speakers on the day were Scottish families. So it was really important for us to have Susie there. So Susie had been a great support to me when I was working in Gwent. Again, always so accommodating, so willing to share resources. What I find with family support is that we're all there, we're all like-minded, we just want the same thing. So she was really excited to come and actually meet us. We had Nakoa there and they were amazing. Cassie, I keep calling her Casey, sorry. Cassie was there, so she was, like Kate said, so excited to see this book in Welsh, and she took so many copies of it to show her colleagues. Like, you can't understand a word of it, but she took a load of copies. And then Andrew did the speech that you're all going to hear now in a minute. And then we were lucky enough to have Platform and Recovery Cymru come and have stalls there, offering some support and offering some advice around what they do.
Over to you, Andrew.
Hi, so I'm Andrew from CAVDAS. I was one of those people that Anna talked about that was tupied over into CAVDAS, having been part of certainly the previous commission service and sort of doing this job for the last far too many years for my own kind of feel comfortable with. But it just Anna was talking about kind of a shared picture of what we wanted to do. I decided that I'd come to sort of, I wanted to do something different from the adult side of things and the recovery side of things, and just chatting in the building, not so much even sort of thinking about moving over. Kind of realised there was quite a lot in common, our views on this, and actually, just as I sort of made that decision to perhaps do something differently, this role came up, and I've known Kate as of old. And so, yeah, so I've been in this role now for about 18 months. And I just want to add a couple of caveats to what I'm going to say, is that, you know, everyone's been completely upbeat. Those of you that know me, it won't surprise you, I'm a little less upbeat, but it's not about anybody that's spoken here today. It's a more generally how we see things as a service. And the caveat is there are a couple of swear words in it, and if you're all now nervous, imagine me, every single line up in my reporting is in this room, so I have to swear in front of for some of you it won't come as a surprise, but okay. So generally, speakers bring with them a wealth of qualifications, research and professional achievements, and it's vital that to date what has been seen as the fluffier side of the work, the family, the others, their perspective is represented by voices with credibility, experience and heart. And we need people advocating for us, people to position us, and for people to fight for us. One of my colleagues in the Alliance recently sort of commented on how, you know, you have to do your easy bit of the job today. And it has sort of, you know, that general kind of sense of we just fanny around with sort of kids and ice cream and what have you. And now I come with my own sort of brand of expertise, or as Mike said, the T-shirt. I am that loved one. I was the drinker, I was the user, I was the colleague, I was the concerned other. Though in truth, I stood on both sides of this experience. And whilst now, to coin a phrase, I'm in recovery, that label alone shouldn't grant me either sort of praise or platform, because change isn't a solo act. It's built on help, support, and the hard truth that damage is done, not just endured. So I'm an enthusiastic advocate for trauma-informed approaches, not only in drug and alcohol services, but as a way of life. And it's reassuring now the services are adopting such a process, and also works nicely alongside my mantra for recovery, which is simply don't be a dick. Having had this rejected as one of the CAVDAS principles early on, I'm now campaigning that any lanyard manufactured in the UK should have don't be a dick stitched onto it. Yet despite this, we often find ourselves within minutes diving into people's childhoods, their families, asking about parents, and it's important to be aware of how easily we risk reinforcing the tired trope of parental blame. That said, there is some truth in it. I have 4 parents, one with the commitment to, now I wrote this joke before things happened, so it's going to be different now. One with a commitment to fidelity as fragile as Elon Musk's to the US wars on drug, and a mother who would have single-handedly solved the trade deficit were she to stop drinking wine boxes. So let's be honest, substance doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's shaped by our circumstances and upbringing. People often quote Philip Larkin's famous line, "They'd fuck you up, your mum and dad." But rarely do they quote the next bit. But they were fucked up in their turn by fools in old style hats and coats. Sorry, I've just dropped the wrong page. But they were fucked up in their turns by fools in old style hats and coats, who half the time with sloppy stern and half at one another's throats. Man hands on misery to man, it deepens like a coastal shelf. We inherit legacies, pains, patterns and behaviours, and whether we like it or not, we pass them on. The question is, what do we do with that knowledge? Families often carry invisible wounds. They sit in A&E, they answer the midnight calls, they lie awake counting someone else's breaths, and yet they're often left out of the story, their own story, because they're not the identified patient. So how did we all get here? Here, where we celebrate that a commission service includes an integrated FCO and P pathway, here where people are surprised, relieved, even grateful that services are finally supporting families as clients, not just adjuncts. We must ask, why have services taken so long to include the family's voice as core and not optional? When you look at the pipeline of people entering treatment, it's clear we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. And it's encouraging that government and services are now thinking about turning to prevention to break the cycle of familial, community and systemic levels. Dame Carol Black's pre-COVID review signalled this shift, placing emphasis on the inclusion of families and young people in the vision for the future. And this is where we, CAVDAS FCO, stand firm. What we offer is not revolutionary by any means in terms of content, but in terms of approach and availability. We offer what it is they feel is needed. As Mike said, smart, craft, mediation, one-to-ones, groups where by definition they access peer support organically as opposed to contrived. We are, after all, each other's peers. We also see the vital nature and worth of short interventions or simply someone to listen to. As was mentioned, you know, being in Cardiff, if anyone simply wants to come down to the barrage and eat good ice cream, then be our guest. We do not see families as merely useful to someone else's recovery. We see families in their own right, with needs, with wounds, with potential. Too often, the family is simply acknowledged as recovery capital, valuable insofar as they support the person using or drinking. But what happens when that person doesn't want to change, doesn't engage with services? What happens to the family then? Others are not carers. Young people should never be unpaid carers, filling the role set out for social services in the NHS. FCOs are not a convenient captive resource to subsidise government and councils. If nothing else, it's bad economics and perpetuates the deprivation and limitations of unpaid and unnoticed support. If the only ticket into support is drug use of others, then families deeply affected, often traumatised, will be left waiting on the outside. Our approach challenges that. At CAVDAS, we're seeing referral numbers to family and concerned others we had never anticipated. But it's not growth. It's a hitherto unmet need finally being seen. We are clearer than ever about our mission to respond to the family's problems, not just the individual's drug or alcohol use. Families are not just support systems. They are whole complex ecosystems. They can amplify harm or build resilience. They can hinder or heal. They are not simply adjacent to addiction. They are right in the thick of it. So the future of this work is not simply about more services. It's about better services. We dream of a system where family involvement is not an afterthought, but built into the architecture of every intervention across age, background and circumstance. Where being a concerned other doesn't mean waiting in the car park or being blamed, but being seen, supported and included. We want services that are truly systemic, that work across boundaries, across ages, across cultures and across generations. Not just family friendly, but family centric, where we break cycles of harm before they begin and where we acknowledge that healing doesn't happen in isolation. We want young people to grow up understanding that help isn't only for the person in crisis, but for those around them too. That you don't have to wait till things get bad enough before you're worthy of care. Imagine a world where a teenager affected by a parent's drinking gets support before they start missing school, where a grandmother helping raise her grandchild due to a loved one's use is connected and not isolated, where asking for help is met with, how can we support you, not, are you the one using? We want to see more collaboration across agencies, sectors and disciplines. Schools, healthcare providers, social workers and community organisations all have a role to play. Our dream is for a genuinely joined up system, one that treats families not as burdens or bystanders, but as active participants in the recovery process. We want policy to reflect this too, investment, training, visibility. We want the next wave of professionals to enter this field already seeing the family as central. That's how cultural change happens, not just through vision statements, but through lived practice. And most of all, we want this to be the norm, not the celebration of the exceptional, but the standard that all services strive for. So thank you just for being here, for being part of this shift, for listening and for caring. This work matters not because it's fluffy, it isn't. It's hard and it's necessary. We're not just helping individuals, we're helping families rebuild, generations heal, and futures change. You've heard today about the pain, but more so the potential. Families have always been part of the story. It's time they were part of the solution, not just the scenery. So let's continue to push, let's be bold, let's make this the generation where support for families isn't a surprise, but a certainty. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, CAVDAS colleagues, for all three of you talking to us about really inspirational stuff and how you've been really innovative in meeting the needs of concerned others and families. So I'm going to take us through some questions and answers. Thank you, Jolie, for joining us on screen as well from GDAFS. So the first two questions I have from the Q&A function are around resources. So the first is for GDAFS. Can families from areas bordering Gwent access your services, or is it exclusively for those in the Gwent area?
It is just for those within the Gwent area. Obviously, we would signpost to any services in the area. We would be able to send them some of our concerned other guides and literature to support them, and obviously direct them to our website. That's really good too.
CAVDAS colleagues then, a question in the chat was around, do you have an e-flyer about Twinkle Twinkle Arti that people can promote in schools in Cardiff and the Vale?
We do. We have the sort of the research package, and then there's the link to the book and how the book works, how the story works, and how the questions afterwards work. Yeah, we can share that.
So another one for Andrew then from CAVDAS. How has your experience of substance use affected the work you do with families and concerned others?
I mean, I think I should say that my colleagues are equally. I suppose for me, it's we use similar tools, but I suppose when I say that old age-old trope of a person can only do it for themselves. I mean that that's my own experience, and I think perhaps I'm a little less. I mean, at first, of course, it caused me issues because I suddenly realised kind of the damage I caused to others, and whereas with retrospect, you can imagine what it was like, but actually seeing people going through it in real time. Obviously, when I was going through it and they were going through it, I had no comprehension, or if I'm truthful, didn't really care. And I think I think sometimes I don't share my experience always, but I think sometimes it does give people hope that here I am walking, talking more by luck than judgment, and maybe it just gives them that little bit of sort of I got the kind of quite tough love, street homeless kind of, but I've sort of bounced back. So I think that can be reassuring, and it's just also just being able to explain to people. A lot of people do not understand. They can't understand why. I've got somebody at the moment who just sits, in their flat, has done for sort of 3 months, curtains drawn, not doing anything else, and it's trying to equate that to to things people might experience. So with the youngsters, I say, well, look, I'll take my phone home with you. You phone home with me for the weekend, and you can literally see them sort of react to that. Just explain that's how sort of parents might be feeling. It's not necessarily a reflection on them. So I don't know. It's been I thought it was going to be easier than it was. For anyone that's in any doubt, I find it kind of more. I probably had more reflective practice and supervision doing this job than I did in years of adult, work.
I think for me as well, Andrew, your knowledge of the services and the pathways, and you can explain to family members what that's going to be like for somebody. I think that's been really, really valuable too.
And one for you, Mike. So we have got a few people saying here, thank you for sharing your personal story. You and the service must have made such a difference to concerned others' lives. When you first started your journey, did you ever imagine it would grow into something like the service GDAFS provides now?
The short answer is no. When we first started up, we never imagined it would take off, to be honest. When I took the role as the initial coordinator, I'd come from a background of heavy industry, and I've never done anything like this in my life. But the the work that had been put in place over the years by volunteers and staff have made this what it is today. So, you know, the thanks have got to go to them. They're the ones that built this. And I'm so proud of what it have achieved in all those years.
Very modest response there, Mike. There is another one that's kind of linked to that for you. Someone asking, what would you say was the most difficult part of setting it up originally?
We started out as our 4 families meeting up, and we were very, very lucky because we had no idea what we were doing, to be honest. Not a clue. And again, huge thanks to Tanya Strange, who was the nurse that brought us all together and introduced us to Gavo and everybody who put the management in place. That was the most difficult part, that we were working blind, and we took it one step at a time and gradually built it up as it was. But to begin with, it was hard, very, very hard, but it improved.
Great, thank you, Mike. Another one then for CAVDAS colleagues. What kind of discussions did you have with the children about the Arti book?
Should I take that?
Yeah, you take that.
It was interesting because we as Kate said, we've gone back in for the secondary follow-up, which I have to say was one of the best days of my working life, partly because they remembered who I was, which is always nice, but they remembered the story. They'd had a copy in the classroom, and because Arti obviously doesn't at any point mention drink or drugs, it's a very useful tool because it can be anything really that's affecting their everyday life. It needn't be drink or drugs. So obviously that's kind of what we do. So the discussions we sort of had was about, and one of the main messages of Arti, without spoiling it for you, is that as much as we'd like to, we can't solve everything ourselves. That sharing is the best way to deal with these issues, because then obviously you can be reminded that you can't solve everything, and so we tend to discuss it in sort of general terms. One child got so close to sort of, he started talking about chemicals and all, looking a bit wobbly and a bit like my dad, but didn't quite step over that mark as to working, although I tend to find children tend not to. It doesn't matter what causes it, it's the impact it has. So we just discuss really what makes them happy, what makes them sad, you know, what to do in those situations, you know, who they have to talk to, and I mean they really came up with, it's easy. I mean, that bit is easy because they come up with the, you know, they've had time to think about it and they come back. There's an awful lot of talk about dinosaurs and dogs, I will admit, but if you can navigate that, then it tends to be quite easy, really.
Yeah, we found out like 42 pet names that day, didn't we?
Yeah.
Oh, how wonderful. Well, I'm gutted to say that we've actually run out of time, but just as a final thank you then to all of our speakers today, it's been really amazing hearing about everything that's going on, especially in relation to our Manifesto Ask. You really are inspirations for other people to go away and really think about family and concerned others as their own unique group with their own unique needs and challenges. Thank you to everybody who's joined us today as well. Our next webinar is going to be focusing on a Good Samaritan Act in relation to overdoses in Wales. And that is going to be held just the day after International Overdose Awareness Day on the 31st of August. So that webinar will take place at 2 p.m. on the 1st of September. The link of which will be in the chat for you now, so that you can book on in readiness for that. Thank you so much to everybody, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.
If you have been affected by any of the issues discussed in today's podcast, please reach out. Barod have a free and confidential live web chat service that is available 7 days a week on our website at barod.cymru, where you can chat to a trained support worker. Alternatively, you can contact Wales's National Drug and Alcohol Helpline, Dan 24/7, either by calling 0808 808 2234 or text Dan to 81066.